coaching is a different monster. You know, controlling 12 personalities in a small space, in a small window of time is not for everybody.
1985, Villanova shocks the world by upsetting Georgetown.
1996, Princeton Tigers upsets UCLA Bruins.
In 1997, Coppin State upsets South Carolina.
2018, the first ever number 16 seed UMBC upsets number 1 University of Virginia.
Everyone loves a great underdog story, the huge upsets, David beating Goliath. But what happens when there are no upsets? When the only people you get to see and hear from are famous people, the superstars, the head coaches, the celebrities. Are their stories more important? Do they matter more? Everyone puts in the same work, the same time, the same sweat. So who hears their stories? From the walk-ons, the assistant coaches, the role players, the 10th man off the bench. Everyone has a story and everyone has a voice. And on this podcast, you will meet these people, you will hear their stories in their own voices.
This is Underrated.
Welcome to Underrated. I'm your host, Ray Hutter, along with my co-host, David Capers. How you doing today, Dave?
I'm doing pretty good, Ray. I'm excited today, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, the heat's out. It's really summertime, and we're bringing the heat with our guest, Antione Johnson.
Nice.
Yes.
And before we get started, though, please, if you would, do us a favor. Make sure you're out there liking, subscribing, sharing with all your friends and followers. Also, we got a big shout out to Echo Flow. If you want to reach out and use this studio, please reach out to them using the underrated@gmail.com, and they'd be happy to talk to you about making arrangements to shoot a podcast, a movie, OnlyFans. I'm kidding about OnlyFans. I'm kidding. Everybody just
We got the
relax.
star right here.
Right. He's bringing the heat.
That one
98
left back.
degrees. 98
Jesus.
degrees.
We already started. Okay.
No, but listen. AJ, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having
Episode
me.
5.
Oh,
You're
thank you.
following
I should have been 1, but it's cool. 5 is cool.
Hey, it's hard to replace number 1.
Yeah, David Capers was number 1. Hard to replace.
That's why I
him.
said that. But it's all right. We're good.
Wow, I can already feel the animosity.
There's some tension.
I think there's going to be a lot of stuff being aired out. What do you think, Dave?
Hey, time is going to tell. Time is definitely going to tell.
All right, well, AJ, the premise of this is really to give a voice to people that, maybe never got a chance to be interviewed or, wasn't always the superstar or the head coach. So what Cape and I are trying to do is just hear these amazing stories by great people. And obviously we brought you in here today because you have a lot of stuff, not only about how you played the game, your high school, college, professional career, but what you're doing now, really trying to bring that back to the community. So we're going to have a lot of fun today.
Good.
There'll be a lot of laughs, some truths about, some of our Saturday runs.
Oh, yeah.
That has to come up, but, but we'll wait. We'll wait.
Okay.
All right. So, just introduce yourself to the world here now.
Okay. Antoine Johnson, born and raised Detroit, Michigan. I moved to New York about 19 years ago. And since then, I played professional sports. I've started an AAU program. I've started a skill development program. I've done so many things in the basketball space on top of podcasts like you guys are doing a great job with here, radio shows. I wrote a book. I had a juice company. I feel like I've done it all.
Wow. So I don't know if we're going to touch all of that.
See.
So, because we still
Need some
have,
more film in there.
being that you're from Detroit, we have some sources out there that says you may have also rapped with Eminem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Tell us about that 8-mile run.
I can't. NDAs. I signed all these NDAs.
All right, so AJ, let's just start off with let's talk about your high school career, how you were recruited, because recruiting is so much different today than it was back in your day, back in our day. Because I think we're a little older than you, so
Just a little bit.
just a little bit. But yeah, just start off, talk about Detroit, your high school career, and then how you ended up at University of Albany.
So I'll go backwards to go forwards, and the recruiting part I was talking to today about with my players, and I got recruited to play on the East Coast, being that I was from the Midwest, because I went to a camp on the East Coast. I went to this camp called, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name, but it was the precursor to the ABCD camp that everybody went to. So I went there for a few years, and then I got recruited by Albany, and came out to see me and everything like that. But recruiting has certainly changed, right? Now it's not so much about finding a gym as it is about putting yourself out there. So I think these players, they're doing a tremendous job of, capitalizing on their social media and everything like that, mixtapes and everything, because that's the game nowadays. Before it was kind of like you had to go play to get seen. Nowadays, you don't even have to play anywhere. They see you on social media. I've heard several stories of guys just sending out TikToks and sending out Twitter to coaches, and they get recruited. So the game has certainly changed. But also, we all know the thing with NCAA and how high school recruitment has changed as well. So that's putting them at a deficit. So it's very important for these high school players to put themselves out there and be more marketable, right? Which, then ties into the NIL. But coming from Detroit, Michigan, Michigan has a really rich history of basketball. I will go on to say that, Michigan, or Detroit in particular, has a very good base of professional athletes. But when I was playing, or at least coming through the ranks to play professionally or in college, I had a really tight group of players. We had about 20 to 25 guys who all had the same goals, who all had the same ambitions, that wanted to play. And we used to spend our summers in the gym. But when I moved here, it was a little different. Even when I moved here, and Capers opened up his arms to welcome me and show me the ropes a little bit amongst other people, they weren't that many people that were trying to do what I was trying to do. So I found myself in the gym, playing by myself, working out by myself to pursue my goals. And that was a difficult time for me. But, as they say, the cream rises to the top.
Mm-hmm. What other schools were recruiting you?
Towson. I did some visits with Toledo. I had not a lot of offers, but I had a lot of communication with. Oh, you dating me, Capers? I'm old. What's funny is I have a box. I have 2 boxes full of letters that I like to show my son every time we go back, and it's full of letters. It's a million letters of these schools that I was oblivious to, right? And I tell everybody I was so naive. I didn't know anything about Division II. I didn't know anything about Division III. All I knew was Georgetown, Arizona, and that was because of Iverson and Mike Bibby. And I'm like, I'm going to Georgetown and Arizona. That's all I'm gonna do. Yes. I didn't know about anything else. So when the Ball State was reaching out, when the school that Curry Davidson was reaching out, all these schools, I'm like, who are you, right? And now I look back, I'm like, man, I could have went here or there, or, you know what I mean? But
did you have anybody helping you or guiding you through the process?
No, it was totally different. Like I said, and I guess we'll get into the AAU scene later on down the line, but we had to go perform. So I was in the midst of some really good AAU players. I was on a really good team. So they kind of came to our team to see everyone, and I kind of, fell in that and with that. But it was completely different. Back then it was like, a coach would like you. He would go through the process of contacting your AAU coach, your high school coach, and all that stuff. And then he would come see you play, right? Nowadays, it's just not the same, right? They'll it's video, right? They got Huddle, they got all these tools that they can just, hey, I'm gonna watch you play, So it was much more personal than it is today.
Did you have any pros on your team?
My high school, AAU team?
Yeah,
man, listen, like I'll tell everybody, right? Listen, I'm not a liar, right?
Well, we have to be fact checked because we ran into a little episode last week with Sean Gregory. So we're.
I surely hope, because I sent you guys some pictures. Because I'm a truth teller. No, I never lied that much. I'm a truth teller. I think I played on the best team ever assembled. Right now, you can take my word for it, but
not the Lifetime League.
Right. I don't know. check me out. Right. So we had Jason Richardson, who you guys know, right? 3-time dunk contest winner. We had DeAndre Hewlett, who you might not know of, but he was like T-Mac. In a sense, him and Jay Richardson went to the same high school. We had Charles Rogers, who was the number 1 pick in the NFL. We had Kelly Butler, who played for the Lions, NFL. We had Desmond Farmer, USC. Kelvin Turbo, Michigan State. Jimmy Twyman played with Antonio Gates. Right. We had a squad. Right. We were demolishing teams. So, yes, I would like to say I played around some really good talent.
Right. So Albany comes, they offer you.
Can I?
Yeah.
Before I cut you off. So check this out. Right. So Albany comes, they recruit me. I go to Albany in probably, I would say, December. Right. So you already know what I'm thinking, right? I go to December, school is out. Right. I go to a game. It's in the middle of a snowstorm.
Yes.
It's probably 8 guys at this game. I'm like, I'm not coming here. There's no way I'm coming here, right? They give me everything. They put me up in like a Ramada Inn or something. I'm like, I'm not coming here. Ain't no way, right? So I go through the visit, whatever. Before we leave Albany, the coach tells my dad, hey, we really like him, but we're going to need an answer sooner than later because we got some other people looking at. In my mind, I'm like, yeah, all right, boy.
Yeah.
But fast forward like 3-4 days later, I'm sitting at home on the bed doing nothing, right? My dad walks in with a phone and says, you're committing. And that's how I committed to Albany.
Wow.
Like, that was it. I'm like, all right. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody. Now, mind you, again, I didn't know anything, right? And I'm grateful for the opportunity,
Of
right?
course.
But I didn't know anything, and I certainly didn't want to go there. I really wanted to go to Toledo or Towson. But I committed. I didn't tell anybody. Probably about a month later, they announced it on the speaker in school. And I'm like, how did they know? How these
Right,
guys
you weren't
know?
in the gym like with
No,
8
I didn't tell
hats.
nobody. I'm
You're
like,
yeah.
mum's the word. But so that's how I committed to Albany. And the
Wow.
rest is history.
So, but you had a really nice career there.
Yes, I had a really nice career. I scored over 1,200 points, and I really would like to say I did that in a matter of like 2.5 years. Another fun fact, again, you can fact check all this stuff. My second year at Auburn, which was my sophomore year, and I got stories for days about this, but my sophomore year, I believe I was second in the nation in minutes. I think I was averaging like 39.5 minutes a game. The first person was like somebody from Syracuse. And so I played a lot, right? I got the opportunity to play, which is another very important thing for these kids getting recruited, right? You go into these big schools, you don't play, you sit out, do all this stuff. I got the opportunity to play a lot, so I was very happy.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things that I try to preach to kids, man. Go somewhere where you can play.
Where you're appreciated,
Yeah.
100%. But again, we live in a different world. These kids are not. And again, we also, these kids have the luxury to transfer too. Believe me, my first year, I called my coach, my AU coach, and like, listen, man, this ain't for me. I gotta go. He told me, you ain't going nowhere, and I stayed there.
Right.
And again, it worked out for me in a sense, but we didn't have so many avenues to explore back then.
So how was your team back then?
We were horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. My best year playing was my freshman year, and we won 6 games. Every other year we stunk it up. And we had to go through that to get to Albany where they were, a few years ago and where they are now. We were independent. My first year in college was their first year Division I. So my recruiting class was like the big recruiting class to take them to the next level. But we just weren't that. I had 3 coaches in 4 years.
Oh, wow.
So I dealt with a lot of adversity in that sense. The coaching wasn't great, to be honest, and the team was dysfunctional. But I met some really good people, and I had an opportunity.
Yeah.
What when did you start playing? Like, did you ever play any other sports? Was just basketball your main sport?
Yeah, no, football was my first love.
Okay.
I played football up until I played football all the way through high school. I toyed around with it in high school, I should say, but I played all the way through high school. But I started playing basketball when I was 12 years old. One of my teammates who was at tryouts or something, one of my teammates' dad ran a startup organization, which we can get into. And he said, hey, you like to play basketball? My dad runs this, come play. And that turned out to be my first team activity, and that led me to play everywhere.
Yeah. It's funny because Ricky was telling us that, he had to cut out a milk crate, bang up and back.
Ricky's a liar.
I love it. This is going to be so much fun tonight. I can see it. All right. So you played 4 years at Albany. They just went, like you said, from Division III, right? Division
2 to 1.
To 2.
2 to 1. So my first year was Division I. Yep.
Yeah.
And we were independent, so we weren't even in the conference. So we could pretty much play everybody. But luckily, we played some big schools. We played Syracuse all 4 years, Ohio State, Utah, California. We played some big schools.
Right. And then, because also now, like you mentioned, like now and today, present day, it's usually UVM, University of Vermont, and Albany. We're always going back and forth.
They were our rivals at that time.
Yeah. And do you have, Kate talked about, like, the love for St. Bonaventures. Obviously, it doesn't seem like you kind of have that love for Albany. But, do you stay in touch with any of your former players? Or?
Yes. I keep in contact with some of the players, but I must admit I don't necessarily have the best taste for Albany. And it has nothing to do with Albany, the school, right? That I got my education there. I'm very, very happy and grateful. But some of the relationships I built at Albany with the higher ups, I was not a fan of once I graduated. You know, there was a lack of help when I wanted to pursue professional sports. And I'm sure it's changed now. They have a new coach who's doing a great job over there. But when I was there, and maybe they just weren't privy to it. You know,
Right.
a lot of guys can come out of Albany and pursue sports. So and I can't say I was the first one, but I think I was one of the first ones that kind of take it more seriously after that transition.
Yeah.
How did you start your career? Where did you start your career over in Europe?
My first gig was, dang, old.
Don't lie.
I can't remember. My first gig was Colombia, I believe. My first gig was Colombia, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, jeez.
Man,
Brought
we're going
back
back a
memories,
long
huh?
time.
Jeez. 2000. No, I lied. My first gig, I got a good story. So my first gig was not Colombia. My first gig was the ABA,
Okay.
Kansas City Knights, right? And before I tell you who was on our roster, I got this opportunity, right? Because we talk about transitions in life, right? I'm sure
Yeah.
this is about. I went through a phase after I graduated where I wasn't getting chosen to play, right? I did the typical overseas camps. I did the typical recruiting exposure events. Again, without help from, my coaches and whatnot. So I took upon myself and traveled around to do these things. And I played well. I performed well. But I didn't know it wasn't about how you perform. It was more so about who you know
Right.
and who
Yeah.
you're talking to, right? I didn't have an
Right.
agent, right? So I went through this phase of doing that, and I got really down on myself, And one reason why I believe my players get me is because I'm relatable to them, right? But like I tell my players, I got to a point where I wanted to quit. I really wanted to be like, I can't do it because I didn't see the benefits of everything the work I was putting in, 15 hours a day, 12 hours a day. Like I ain't getting no job. Everybody else getting jobs.
Right.
So I got to a point where I wanted to quit. And then one of my good friends, Kevin Melson, he went to Bowling Green, I believe. He had a Wendy's meal. This guy, I'm telling you can look this up, man. I wouldn't lie to you. All right. But he went there and I told him, like, Kev, man, I'm about to give it up. And he said, listen, come work out with my agent. 5 a.m. University of Detroit. I'm like, all right, I'll go work out. And from the first day, the agent took me in. He gave me some really sound advice. And fast forward a few months later, Kevin was getting recruited by this team, Kansas City Knights, to go play in the ABA, which was just reinvented in a sense. They were coming back and they had a bunch of good things going on. So he sent all of us out there. We took a car, 15 hours from Detroit to Kansas City. I sat on the hump. Right, I'm the small guy, right? 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", 6'5", me, right, on the hump, right, and I made it. Right,
Okay.
3 of us got called back. Kevin, this other guy, Mike Harmon, and then myself got called back, and that was the start of my career. So basically, I rode someone's coattail, right? So I always tell my players, like, it don't matter how you get in, you got to get in, right?
Of course.
We always think that we got to be the guy or we got to be the man. I wasn't the man. Like I was the man's friend, right? And I got in, and that started my career.
That's dope.
But I digress to go back. So in this league, we had Denero Pargo.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
We had Matt Barnes, who got called up from that league. Dennis Rodman, Master P. We had a couple N1 dudes. I mean, this league was full of players who would transition, right, from like the NBA or trying to get to the NBA. And that's what like the glory years of the ABA. I think they're kind of something now, but that was like the glory years of the ABA where it was semi-pro basketball in the States was really competitive.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not the same anymore. I mean, the G League wasn't, I think the G League just started. They was paying guys 15, 20,000. Nobody was even thinking about the G League. So ABA was like the next best thing. And then the USBL, I think you played the USBL was like the thing in the spring.
Right.
Was it the CBA around that time or no?
CBA was not the better league at that time.
Okay.
The ABA was the better league. But then I played in the CBA years after that.
Gotcha.
No.
So then you transitioned down to Colombia. Did you
yes.
play overseas or just down in South America?
So I did South America. Then I came back. I think, the CBA. And then from the CBA, I did some other leagues, IBL or something like that in Detroit, right? And then I started to get into the overseas gig. I did the Turkey. I did Hungary. And then I started to do some of that stuff.
What was the toughest part about being overseas or in South America and, still trying to pursue your dream of hopefully one day playing in the NBA?
Honestly, I can't say it was tough. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I think my personality wasn't always. I wasn't mature enough to handle all of the situations, and I can say that now. But I enjoyed it. I was fortunate enough to stay in major cities, though. I stayed in the capital of Turkey.
Right.
I stayed in the capital of Hungary. Right. I didn't stay in these rural areas that didn't have running water and one. You know what I mean? So I was fortunate enough to be in really good areas that were populated and Americanized. So it was fine for me.
Where did you have your best experience?
Ooh. For basketball or just
Well, this is PG.
Yeah,
I thought it was
so
only
we want-
fans.
Keep it about the sport.
Yeah.
I would
Talk
say
about that after.
I would probably say Turkey.
Turkey.
Yeah, Turkey, and besides the basketball, because basketball is really popular in Turkey. I would say because a good friend of mine who I went to high school with, he was living in the I forget the capital, not the capital, but the major city in Turkey. He was living in that city, so we got a chance to hang out, during like off time and stuff like that.
So I tell everyone that will listen to me that you also had a close encounter, if you would, with the New York Knicks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
When we're
yes.
playing on the weekends, I got to go tell my kids,
Yeah.
my friends that, I used to guard this guy who was like the last cut from the New York Knicks.
Oh,
So I
man.
try to make it.
Talking about you was abusing them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get
Well,
some
we'll
stories.
get to that. That's a special segment.
My price was too high; they couldn't afford me. No, so
But that's an amazing
yeah, so
accomplishment.
we talk about dreams. That was one of my dreams to go play in the NBA or play a higher level basketball, and I got a chance to play in the summer league with the Knicks. And again, another funny story. I was at Cheesecake Factory in White Plains with a good friend of mine, Nate Robinson, and this is like Dan and Tony's first day with the Knicks, right? So he calls Nate. Nate gets on the phone with him. We just chilling, and I'm in the back like, yo, tell Dan and Tony I want to play summer league, right? I'm like one of them guys, creepy almost. And he like, yeah, right? So then Dan and Tony wants to see Nate, right? So we go right from Cheesecake Factory to the practice facility. They talking, and I guess he did his 1-2 thing and told Dan and Tony, this is my guy. He wants to do this, whatever. I meet Dan and Tony. I tell them where I played at, and they didn't give me a guarantee. They told me, hey, well, actually, what he said was, and this is true. He's like, I just got here. We got a bunch of guys we need to draft, but stick around and we'll see what happens. So I took it and ran with it.
Right.
Most people would be like, "Oh, he ain't feeling me."
Yeah.
I'm in the facility every day, like it's my job, right? And they ain't there, I'm there. You know what I mean? So I worked out every single day for about two months or whatnot. Every single day, whatever they had, I was doing it. Got to meet some good people, and lo and behold, one day the GM come down. He said, "Hey, I want you to go to Summer League," and the rest is history. So, again, we talk about stories and we talk about moments and opportunity, right? And I took advantage of that opportunity, where some people would have looked at it like, they don't want me or I'm not gonna, and I got stories on the back part of that we should talk about. But for the most part, I'm happy that I was resilient enough to take advantage of that. And that goes back to wanting to quit in the first place, right? Resiliency is key in this game.
Right. And everybody faces adversity in life, and
100%.
it's always how do you respond to that adversity versus you could quit or do you push through,
right?
100%. So some of just tell us a little bit about like the summer league that you played in, like what was the competition like? Who did you play against?
I always like to tell people I went at the worst time possible, and I say that because it was Dan and Tony's first year coaching. And everybody on the Knicks team wanted to play.
Right.
So you had Nate. They retired Nate's jersey at Summer League, basically like, bro, don't come back, right? Marty Collins, right? Everybody who was like 2 or 3 years was still playing. Now, that's not normal, right? Normally you go to Summer League, you got your rookies, you got your undrafted players, and maybe your first-year guys who they kind of want to see. So I went at a time where everyone was trying to play because they wanted to show face for Dan and Tony. So I was probably like, in order, I'll probably like the 6 or 7 point guard without an agent, so it didn't work out well for me. And again, I still have a bad taste in my mouth from that, but it didn't work out well for me, but it was an experience nonetheless.
Right. So where'd you go from that? 'Cause was that like the last part of playing or you kept going to like different
So
areas?
from there, I went to play in Turkey. So right after that, I went to play in Turkey, and then Turkey was my last stint.
Okay.
You think the camp helped you get to Turkey or?
Yes, I do. I do actually. I think, overseas is funny too because they have so many leagues and have so many divisions, right? But they still have this love for NBA guys or guys who play in the NBA. So, I think it definitely helped me. And then I was smart enough to get an agent to help me get over there after I did the thing with the Knicks. So, propelled me in the right direction.
Talk about how you came into coaching.
Ooh. I don't know. I always say I'm a glutton for punishment. I have no idea how I got into coaching. Coaching is not for me, right? But I love it. You know what I mean? And I love learning. But these kids are different. they are different, and that's a nice way of putting it. But I feel like, I'm never looking for a coaching job. I'm never the guy that's on the internet like who's leaving, let me go try it out. Always falls into my lap in the sense where someone says, hey, this is open, why don't you go try it out? So I think my first coaching job was at Eunice in the city, United Nations International School. A friend of mine was the track coach. And she said, hey, they got an opening for this girl's position. Would you want to do it? And I said, I guess. And then, the rest is history. But, I like the development side of it. I like working with players one-on-one. I like seeing the growth of athletes, from day one to day, whenever they stop playing. I like seeing them excel. Coaching is a different monster. Controlling 12 personalities in a small space, in a small window of time is not for everybody, So I really give kudos to guys like Ricky who are knee deep into coaching, because it's not for everybody, not whatsoever.
So Turkey, did you just decide to stop playing, or
Um,
because we'll get back into your coaching, but just want to know
no,
what was the transition?
I did not, and this might be the only thing I don't go deep into, but I had to make a life decision for my family, where I could continue pursuing my career, or I could not and have a better situation for my family, and that's what I chose.
Yeah, well, listen,
Yeah.
that, again, all part of the life journey.
Yeah,
right?
you got to make choices and decisions, so.
So now you're currently today, you two are coaching together. So
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
neither do I.
Yeah.
All
But-
jokes aside, though, I do want to say thank you for giving me my first
Oh,
coaching
man.
job, man.
There
I
you go.
appreciate that.
Wow,
There you go.
I
Yeah.
didn't know we were gonna get emotional here.
Hey, nah, man. I appreciate that.
My man.
But because I know you have always worked out, guys.
Yes.
We've talked about the
Mhm.
personal development. How do you bring that into what you're doing at Cardinal Spellman
Mhm.
or with your overtime team?
It's all about development. And it is the thing that these kids are missing is the core development. They can run, they can jump, they can do all the fancy stuff, but they can't do anything fundamental, right? Or at least not at a higher level, right? Passing is not great. They over dribble. The IQ is low typically. So what we try to do at Cardinal Spellman is introduce that into everything we do, right? And it's difficult because you only have so much time to teach these kids. I mean, really, you need 4 or 5 hours a day, 7 days a week, but you get, 9 hours a week to kind of coach these kids up, right? And I think we did a hell of a job in the last 2 years of getting our team to perform at a high level. But then you're still dealing with the generation, right? You're dealing with, the rebelliousness. You're dealing with the mental part of it. You're dealing with the can't handle the truth or can't handle criticism. You're dealing with all of these things that we wouldn't typically have a problem with 20 years ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we're trying to work our way around it the best we can. But honestly, the thing we try to do, or we do best as Spellman, is teach. You know what I mean? Regardless. And I always say it don't make a difference what team you got or what they look like. If they can't do what you need them to do in a player, in a set, or in a scheme, then you can't win. So we try to teach them the fundamentals, how to play basketball, and hopefully add some each year.
What type of if you had to name like a point guard for yourself, like what kind of a point guard would you want? Because being that you play point guard,
Okay.
right? Just name like a type of player that you like to run your offenses or for your AU for Cardinal.
My favorite point guard, my favorite style of point guard would be similar to Chris Paul, right?
Okay.
Someone who's a leader, someone who's a bulldog, someone who understands his role, and not overall, but just in moments, right? Chris Paul can give you 20 and 10 one day, and next day he can give you 2 and 15, right? He understands that it's not necessarily about him, but it's about the win or about the team. But I like leaders. I like vocal players. I like tough players, and not tough as in physical or fighting, but tough as in mentally tough, right? that can handle adversity, because the game is adverse within itself. You know, you go on runs or you get injured and things happen throughout the game that you have to mentally adjust to, that a lot of these players can't do.
Right.
So if you were to mimic your game, who would you say you play like most? Because we've had this debate in the past that I've been trying to call and fact check. So I just want to hear him say this.
I heard he said
Okay,
me.
hold on.
Was it
So
me?
my younger life, I said you before. My younger life, right? I was probably most compared to Russell Westbrook, right? And y'all can't believe it. Listen, I'm about 40 pounds overweight. I get it. But I was really, really athletic. My jump shot was suspect. My handles was decent at best. I was a passing lane guy. But I was really athletic. And I know that it burns him up, because that's all he has over me at this point. It
But
burns
we
him
do have
up.
pictures of you that are going to be in the
Please,
podcast here that
please.
shows you in a much better light.
If you got a rim outside, I'll go do something.
You
got
shoot
no
somebody
rim.
else.
that's going to be
You
our
got no rim,
exclusive subscription
Yeah.
only type of
Yeah,
thing.
gotta get that off.
But no, so Russell Westbrook.
I think that would be the most comparable person in my mind, how I used to play. As I got older, and I really feel like I was a much better player as I went through the different levels of basketball. I think I was a better college player than I was in high school, because I had someone who spent time to teach me the things I need to learn. When I first got to college, I used to get in foul trouble a lot because I used to use my athleticism. And guys were just taking charges on me, right? So I had a coach who took the time to pull me aside and say, hey, you have to develop a jump shot. He spent some time with me, and then my jump shot got better. And then once I moved to the pro ranks, I had guys, I give you these names. I'm gonna let you guys tell me, what's the guy's name, played for the Knicks, got in trouble for drugs? Michael Ray Richardson.
Oh,
He was my coach.
wow.
And
Old
the
school
guy,
name.
yeah, no, and the guy, I had 3 NBA coaches in my career. I was very blessed in my career to have these kind of coaches. I had Scott Wedman.
Okay.
He played for
Yeah.
the Boston Celtics, and I had the other guy. And you old school guys remember this, when Jordan hit the 6 threes, and the guy was on the bench waving the towel.
Okay.
You remember that guy?
Yeah.
I forget his name, but he was really instrumental in helping me understand the IQ part of basketball as a point guard. I'm sorry, I forget his name. He was a really good guy.
Not Livingston.
Say his name.
Something like Livingston.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's gonna come back to me, but he was one of my coaches for the CBA. He really helped me understand the IQ side of it. But again, these opportunities don't come often.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you get guys who got Uncle Joe coaching them, and it's just really weird. You know what I mean? So I was fortunate enough to have these experiences.
So let me bring both of you in on this, because we've talked about it with Kate. We talked about it with Ricky. Recruiting has changed.
Yes.
And one of the big things that Ricky brought up, and I know Rick Pitino talked about it and has been interviewed and heard him saying this, but a lot of Division I schools, their first thing now is the portal.
Mm-hmm.
And they really are not looking at high school kids unless they're like the man on their team, or they're one of the best in the states.
Mm-hmm.
So as you two are coaching together, how are you handling whether it's Division I, Division II, or Division III? How do you handle those conversations with these young kids? Because to your point earlier, some of them can't handle the truth,
Mm-hmm.
and they think they're much better than they are. But it's really affected the game for high school seniors, or even high school juniors and seniors who are trying to establish that chance to go play at the next level.
Right. So for me, or I should say for us as we coach together, it's not about necessarily what we believe, but how we can help you accomplish what you believe, right? So the first thing we need to do is figure out what your ambitions are, right? And not everyone's ambitions are the same. Some people want to be just a high school player. Some people want to go on to college and they understand they want to be a Division III player. Some people have more loftier goals. So first we got to establish what your goals are, and then it's our job to help you get that, right? And that's what I think we've been doing over the last couple of years. Luckily, we had players who had ambitions and had goals, and we've tried our best to get them recruited, get them looks, and bring people in. that can appreciate their skill set. But again, it's not it's not the easiest thing to do in today's climate of recruiting, and it's not easy to do in today's climate of just players, right? They are all slightly delusional, right? They all think they're going somewhere. They don't put in enough work, and they don't understand when you tell them it ain't gonna happen. Point blank, they look at you like, oh, you don't believe in me, but I do believe in you. But when you spend more time on the PlayStation than you do working on your game, it's just highly unlikely.
Right.
You know what I mean? But the crazy part about it is I just don't know from a coaching standpoint, a training standpoint, what drives this generation, right? Because for us, as we all talk about it, if an NIL opportunity was put in front of us, that would be all we need.
Right.
I
Right.
have the opportunity to make $200,000-$300,000 next year. Say no more. Like I would
Right.
stay in the gym all day. You would have to literally come get me out the gym. But these kids see it. They're around it. Their
Right.
friend can have an NIL, and they'll still like, all right. They'll
Yeah.
still put in very little amount of work.
No motivation.
Yeah, I just don't know what motivates them. You know, it's odd.
Yeah. No. And Cape, I mean, what's your perspective with AJ and what you guys are doing there?
The one thing that I could say that when they come around Cardinal, right, and they come around both of us, is that they do get a dose of reality because AJ lets them know, like, yo, do you really want to play ball after high school, or do you really want to play in high school? Like, we have these conversations with our kids all the time, and the one thing that I could say is that I love how he's just really upfront and honest with kids, because again, kids need reality. Like, they don't need to be fed spoon fed, something that is not really going to happen, and you got people telling them, oh, you're gonna be able to go here, you're gonna be able to go there, but they can't beat nobody on their block.
Right. Right.
So I mean, it's just a lot of false hope out there. But the one thing we do preach is reality.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Well, and I think that's important. But I think our generation is, we wake up at 6:30 in the morning on a Saturday to still go compete.
Yeah.
We have a
and
different
still
motive.
try to win.
We have a different motive.
And those kids aren't doing
They're
that.
they're not like that, and the ones that do that or have that kind of motive, they are successful
Right.
in their own right. But to me, I always tell these kids, listen, you can be mad at me now for keeping it real with you, or you can be mad at yourself in 2 years because you have no offers.
Right.
Right. So you can take what we tell you and go work on it, or you cannot, and we never tell you. And at the end of the day, you can be mad at us because you didn't work hard.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
And I know for myself, and even back in the day, like it was a different time where you had the older guys just bringing the young kids to the parks, right? So that's why whenever we get a chance, I'll bring some of my Cardinals
Right, yeah.
players to the runs, just so you can understand, like, this is a lifestyle, right?
Yes.
It's not
Right.
just a recreational sport.
Yes.
It's a lifestyle, and they don't really get that until they start coming around us, and they're like, oh, these guys are 40, 50, 60, and they
Still
can
playing
and they can beat me.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
And that's what it's all about. Just giving back to the young kids, man.
Yes.
And it's important because in general, it's extremely hard, and I'm stating the obvious, to make the NBA, even to play overseas or even to play at college at any level, Division 1, 2, or 3. But what you're teaching them is about life lessons.
Yeah,
100%.
And that's going to carry over into their regular life, whether they're working at Wall Street, whether they're a teacher, whether they're working in a trade. Like the lessons you're teaching them today carries over off the court.
Ironically enough, firstly, when I got into coaching, when we got into coaching in a Catholic school, which some consider to be one of the best leagues in the country,
Yeah.
I didn't realize the amount of issues that players would have. I thought this was like an elitist kind of league where, talent aside, that these guys had great family structure and academics was fine. And I was taken aback to know that they had just as many issues or dealing with just as many issues as inner city kid or a kid that goes to public school. So you almost become not just a coach, but a therapist, a friend, a father figure in a sense. You carry all these hats, and it's necessary, and we don't stray away from that. Like Coach, like Caper said, he's taken out his time to go and take players to play with him to experience different things. I've had lunch with players, and it's a different world. You know what I mean? But it's necessary, like you said, it's absolutely necessary for them to understand what it's going to take.
Yeah, and it's funny because we've talked about some technology ideas
Hmm.
and all of the different apps that are out there, but it's funny because us growing up, we didn't have the TikTok, we didn't
Oh
have the
no,
social media, and
nothing.
I think that's a negative thing because people now they want to grow up and be influencers.
Yeah.
Hmm.
They want to have the most views. So
Hmm.
again, on Underrated, we do too. So make sure that you're liking, subscribing, and so on. But I think that has such a negative impact on people's motivation because they think they're going to have one video go viral and now they don't ever have to work.
Right. Well, they call it like the microwave generation, right? You want these major results with a little bit of work, right?
Yeah.
Or in a short period of time. They don't understand uh that you have to put in the work over a period of time to get it. Like for us, I remember vividly watching VHS, right?
Yeah.
Dated people, VHS Come Fly With Me.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right
And
before the game.
yeah, right before the game, and you watching all this stuff, or just watching a game, and you got to watch the whole game, right? Jordan's my favorite player. You got to watch an entire Chicago Bulls game to get to the one reverse, right?
Yeah.
So you see the mistakes, you see all the other plays to get
Right.
to the run reverse, but you like, oh my god. Well, now these kids have YouTube, right?
Right.
So they can type in Michael Jordan reverse, and they can see 50 clips of a reverse without seeing the defense, without
Right.
seeing the missed shots,
Yeah.
without seeing the turnovers. So they don't understand that it's so many other elements that come before and after at one play. So yeah, they all want this easy, simple, quick gratification, but they don't understand the amount of work that goes into getting that at all.
I know you you're a successful AAU coach, right? And I know you
Hmm.
have team overtime. So
Yeah, boy.
so tell us about how the whole discrepancy with the name and everything, because I know there was
What discrepancy? We
oh
are we are overtime. Ain't no
oh
discrepancy.
okay.
It sounds like he was
Yeah.
trying to set you up for some sort of
Man,
litigation.
yo, this man, he a snitch. So obviously Overtime is a well-known brand
Mhm.
that does video and stuff like that. And I kudos to them. I can't say I don't wish I didn't have that kind of impact right now, but we are our own brand, right? Team Overtime and Overtime Training Company is its own brand. I believe we have a pretty good foothold in the Westchester area and a pretty good name and brand. But obviously two different entities. And if they do watch this, I would love to do work. Right. But yeah, Team Overtime is something that I started, and I hate AAU. And I've been in AAU for a decade plus. I hate AAU for the same reasons that we just talked about. Oversaturated, no one teaches, it's watered down. But I had my son playing with a team, local team, and this local team was good in terms of exposing them to something different, right? Because we all live in Westchester, Ray, big house. We all live in Westchester and suburban New York. And this team was very good at taking these suburban players and pushing them into the city versus that level of competition. And I felt that that was good for that piece. But the development piece wasn't there. And I knew if my son was going to have a shot, he needed to understand how to play the
Right.
game. So I took a few players from that team, a few of his friends, and just said, hey, let's do something in the summer, which started Team Overtime, and it blossomed into something now that's pretty phenomenal. We had Westchester's Mr. Basketball a year ago. We'll probably have another one or two in the next year or two. So we're growing and we're impacting lives in a different way. And I like to say we get back to the essence of AAU. Capers, I'm sure you understand. Ray doesn't know what we're talking about, but
That's kind of messed up, man. 'Cause I think it's because I'm older. I'm
Yeah,
older generation.
gotta be that.
Don't worry.
as we all,
Payback is coming.
as we all understand, the premise of AAU was to take a collection of the best players in one region
Right.
and one
Yeah.
area and play them against the other team in another area. It's just completely different now. But not just that, but also the experience, right? You're getting to meet these guys that you wouldn't normally meet. You're getting to hang out with these guys, spend time with these guys, and develop relationships. Like I said, I still talk to my guys, and it's been 30 years since we
Yeah.
played basketball, and I still have relationships. I'm sure you guys too.
Mhm.
So for our program, that's what we do, right? We like to travel together. We like to do things together. We like to make sure that it's not a high and buy situation. So many programs, they play local basketball, which is fine, but it's a high and buy. They don't know each other. They don't know each other's last name.
Right.
They don't even know each other what school they go to, and they've been together for 3 months. Right.
Right.
That is not something that our program preaches. So for nothing else, the essence of what we do, I think, is going to impact these kids forever.
That's awesome.
All right, so let's switch it up. We're going to turn from you.
Ooh.
We've turned the focus off, and we're going to get into some chat topics, things we like to talk about.
Yep.
And I will pay you back for that comment
Shortly.
shortly. I think we have video from our Saturday
Please,
run, but
please.
we'll get to it. Trust me. So just some hot topics right now here. So what do you think with Caitlin Clark and what's been happening recently to her last couple games, couple physical fouls, things like that? There's a lot of media about that. What is your take?
I watched the replay of the foul that happened the other day, and obviously she wasn't pushed as hard as she made it seem. But I'm an '80s baby. I love '80s basketball, '90s basketball, and the physicality in that era was something different. So the things that these players are doing today, I just don't get. You know what I mean? I really appreciate Caitlin Clark. I think she's transcending the game for women hoopers, her and amongst other people. But I think what she's doing for the game, just to get eyes on the game, is tremendous. But I have a problem with the flopping and the crying and all. I can't stand it. You know what I mean? So in that light, for all of them, men and women, I just can't get with it.
Kate, what are your thoughts?
Like you said, I like the physicality. Even like with the NBA playoffs this year. Like this year, there was a lot of physicality being played, especially with Knicks series. And the game was, like you said, watered down. It's just a lot of shooting threes now. Now you really got to earn your bucket, and that's what I like to see. Like there's a little bit of pushing, shoving, and going on, and they smack talking, and like that's the game. You want to talk shit, and rough it up with everybody.
Yeah, that's the game. You can't take that out the game.
Yeah.
Well, it's something that I'm glad you mentioned the 80s and the 90s, because if you remember Michael Jordan going against the Pistons.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Born and raised.
they had a whole mission to take him out.
Yes.
And it's like Caitlin Clark, the superstar on the women's side, she has to go through that, is my opinion. She has to battle through that the way
To
Michael
be the
did
best,
for,
you have to.
6 or 7 years before, the championships came.
Yeah, it's a lot of hate going on. Like like they wish that they were in their spotlight like she is, right? So they're gonna go at her extra hard. They're gonna, maybe follow a little bit more hard, to be a little bit more physical, so I get it, but when you on top, you want that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think she's welcoming that, because she's still dropping buckets on people and talking to smack like she's supposed to.
I think what separates her from everyone else, right? Because you have a lot of really good, talented, and I don't think she's the best player in the WNBA. But what separates her, I believe, is how she looks and who she is, right? Who would have thunk that this somewhat small,
Curry effect,
right? someone small white guard would be having this kind of impact on the league, right? And she's talented. That goes without saying. So I think there's something to that people didn't expect it to be her.
Right. Yeah. So we got the NBA draft coming up. So is there anywhere in the world that Cooper Flagg is not drafted number 1?
Who got the number 1 pick?
I believe Dallas does.
Yeah, the Mavs.
No, not with them at the number 1 pick. But we've seen crazier things.
Right.
Bennett, somebody just went recently that we didn't think was gonna go number 1. But we've seen crazier things. But I think he's the most NBA ready player right now. I don't see why you wouldn't draft him. Like, you have to be a fool. But then again, with everything going on, they were talking today about Kevin Durant going to the Spurs. Let's go Spurs. Who knows what Dallas may say, we don't want Cooper Flagg. We want somebody who's ready now, or who's going to impact the game tremendously now. So they may change it up. You know what I mean? But I don't see how he doesn't go first.
Do you think that he's a generational player?
Generational? No, I do not. I think he's going to be really good in the league. But do I think that he,
like a superstar status?
do I think that we have kids coming up saying, I want to be like Cooper Flagg? No. I don't think. I mean, but it's hard to say, and I guess this is the difference, or why certain players can sell or are marketable, right? It's hard when you are 6'10", 6'11", and like everybody's not that size, so people can't relate to it,
right?
But I don't foresee anybody saying, "Oh, I want to be like Cooper Flagg." You know what I mean? Like everybody, Ja is popular. Even Brunson is really popular. I see people taking on to them more so.
You guys think any trades to, Dallas could all of a sudden trade that first pick for like 7-5
Listen,
legit
if
players?
I'm Dallas, maybe I go get Zion. Maybe I'll trade that pick to the Pelicans, go get Zion or something else, and then that may be a good look.
Because they're in a win mode now.
Yeah, they win more now, and not to say that I think he does enough to definitely be an impactful player. But Zion, I'm not taking him over Zion. I don't care what he's doing.
Yeah. Well, Zion isn't. I don't know.
No, you wouldn't.
I don't.
No, okay, that's
Zion
right. But again, we talking about a fit.
No,
right? We're not talking
right,
about the
right.
player. We're talking about the
Right.
fit. And
No,
for
true,
me, you got
true.
Kyrie and AD, right? They're going to take 30 shots a game.
Right.
So now you almost limited Cooper Flagg if you're saying, hey, you got to just do this or just do that. So I
That's
think
true.
you get somebody else who can kind of fit in the gaps.
He needs to go to a team where he can play a lot and make mistakes, and like he won't be able to do that with Dallas because
Have a learning curve.
Mode now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, good points.
But then again, AD gets hurt every 5 seconds. So then again, he'll be fine.
So before we get into our final segment, overrated, underrated, what is the future for AJ? What are you looking to do in the next 1 to 3 to 5 years? Because as we've been saying, Capers and I, everyone that's been on this show, their stock has risen.
To the moon.
I mean, so this could really, get you to where you've always wanted to be. So,
what's funny, man? I had this conversation with my therapist yesterday, right? And I would like to say therapy is good, right? And I couldn't answer without kind of like challenging myself, but I really would love to do something that transcends the game. I think there's a space or there's a missing element, a void of such for someone to bring basketball back to its prominence. So I would love to do something special, something that is revolutionary that can change basketball, at least bring it back to its prominence. Because I love this sport. This is not just a job for me. This is, like Cooper said, this is a lifestyle, right? I eat, sleep, breathe it, right? So it saddens me when I go to this AAU tournament, which I did this weekend when we was in Florida, and they have a whole section catering to YouTube basketball. Like, why are we doing that? Right. This is not what I want to be around, in a sense. So I would love to do something that certainly shocks the world in the basketball space, and I also want to get into some more events. I think when we in our group chat, when we pass around messages where guys or families are paying $90 per person to get into a tournament, is crazy, right? With the rising costs, like how can you even afford to play basketball? You know what I mean? Or watch it. You're already paying X amount of money for your child to go play, but now you got to pay another, $5,000-$6,000 to watch him play. So I would love to do something in that space and stay around the sport, and then hopefully have some time to watch my son in college and my daughter grow into what she's going to be.
All right, excellent. And, I lied. I know you said you never lie, but I just lied because there's one thing left before we get to the overrated, underrated. Like 6 weekends ago, Kate.
6 weekends.
6 weekends ago, exactly. And I think it was probably like at 8:57 in the morning.
Yes, it was.
Can you just explain what transpired?
Yeah, so I mean, it was 5-on-5. I think me and you were on the same team.
I believe we were.
Right, and then I think I might have threw the ball to you in the post, and you had AJ guarding you.
I think I did.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, AJ was popping you and hitting you, and you was backing him down, and you gave him a little shimmy, then he flew over there. You went the other way with the jump shot.
Little fadeaway, kind of Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant-esque fadeaway.
And then he called it out on him.
Right. And then, not only that, but the place where we played, I think I heard over the loudspeakers, sometimes I dream that he is me. I mean, I could be making that up, but I'm not sure.
It was all in slow motion.
So can we just get do you lie or do you tell the truth?
So I got a recap for you. So I remember this day, 8:57, 6 weeks ago. And I remember it was right after the play that I locked Capers up. He tried to put me in the post, and I put that big forearm. I put that big forearm on him. And all he said was, please. All I kept saying is, please. And then the ball got turned over. But, sometimes it's like this, man. You know how you see the old lady walking across the street and you feel like, man, I got to help her. Or you got to hold the door open. You see somebody that may be a little handicapped. You're like, let me just hold the door open for them. charitable. I felt charitable, so I let you. And you still talking about 6 weeks ago, so I did my job.
Wait, that was the last time you was there, though.
I did my job
He hasn't
6
been
weeks
back
ago.
since. They won't let
6
him in the
weeks
run.
ago, he's
That's
still
right.
talking about.
All
I did
right,
my job.
Thank you for
No problem.
I mean, you could have just said yes. That's what happened, but we digress. All
Backstory
right.
is important.
Yes, thank you. So let's go on. So this is the overrated, underrated segment sponsored by our Chile shades. You'll see the link
Shades
pop
of
up.
fire.
Yeah, and you get to go home with one.
Two.
So or two. That's right. You put in your contract.
Yes.
Very smart.
Yes.
Two. All right. So this is where we just say one thing, and you quickly say overrated or underrated. So
Mhm.
Kate, why don't you start off?
NBA Summer League.
Ooh.
Not to bring back bad
That's,
memories.
does this have to be quick, or you just need an answer?
No, you
Hey, listen, Sean Gregory talks for like 40 minutes on it, so it's up to you.
Underrated,
Underrated, overrated.
Overrated.
Okay. Coach Tibbs.
Ooh. Underrated.
the firing of Coach Tibbs.
Overrated. Underrated.
Did you like it or?
I thought it was necessary because of the style of coaching, but I think he's a really good coach, but maybe just not a good fit. But I also think it wasn't the right move at the time because, as you can see, they don't have any which way to go right now. So I think it was necessary, and it's sad to say that the players run the league in the sense that they can complain about how he coaches and the coach can get fired regardless of how successful he was for the season, and we've seen it time after time. A coach get coach of the year or wins a championship, and then they get fired for some oddball reason. But that's just the time we live in.
All right. Mike Kober.
He's overrated, completely and utterly, 100%.
Anything else you want to say about Mike?
Capers, overrated, 100%.
You don't even
You know,
come
these
out.
are all-
Don't even come out.
Ricky, overrated.
You know, these
Keep
are all
going.
people that he don't want no smoke
Hey,
with.
overrated. All them guys, overrated.
Kate, why don't you finish out with the last one?
The last one. AU Sports.
Overrated.
Overrated?
There has to be a different outlet or a more regulated outlet for these kids to get seen, develop, and get exposure. And I think Nike's doing a good job with that, and putting themselves in a box, right, with the EYBL. And now you see Adidas doing it, Under Armour's doing it, Puma's doing it. All these teams are doing it. But as we look at AAU is like just a namesake, right? It's like Q-tip, right? It's not really anything, right? AAU is just a moniker for travel basketball. So you really, back in the day, you had to be AAU certified. You had to go through the process of registering to AAU. You had to play in the AAU tournaments, and then you went to AAU nationals. Today, that doesn't exist. So AAU is not anything in terms of a business. It's more so just a moniker. But I think there has to be a different way for these different tiers of players to get seen, because you have Nike, that's the top tier supposedly, and then you have all these other tiers underneath them where players are not necessarily getting the same access. So I think there has to be something that comes into play for these players, because there are, like you said, Division II and Division III are very good. JUCO is very good. So there has to be some avenues for these players to get the same kind of access.
I have one more question. Personal trainers.
Overrated.
Overrated?
And only because, and again, these are spaces that I am actively in.
That's fine.
Only because there's not enough. It's like teams. There's not enough good coaching to go around, right? So you have all of these AAU teams, you have all of these coaches, and you have all of these trainers, and it's not good, right? And we see it, and we talk about a lot of these what we call social media trainers, and it's just bad basketball. You're reinforcing terrible habits. But for the sake of video, for the sake of money, for the sake of being visual, being seen, and it's hurting the game tremendously. So I think the training space, again, is something that needs to be regulated or overseen to help these players, because I'm passionate about the development side. So in order for these kids to get where they got to go, they have to be able to do things fundamentally, and that's not what we're seeing. I mean, look at what they talk about Jaylen Brown. can't go left. They showed the thing today about Halliburton, right? Schematic where
Oh,
he
he only
scored
shoots.
all his points on the right side of the
Yeah.
court.
Right.
Like that's unheard of,
Yeah.
right? So it comes from, the training, it comes from this overuse of AAU, it comes from all of these things. So there needs to be something in this injury to shake it up.
I like it. I like it. Well, AJ, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I
We
appreciate it.
appreciate you
Appreciate you.
being on the show and just, telling your story from
Mhm.
Detroit, Michigan, all the way to your happy place at University of Albany,
Mhm.
onto your professional career and now what you're doing to really teach the young kids, bringing you back to the community and helping them develop, whether it be on the court or off the court.
Yeah.
You got a great story, and we do appreciate your
I
time.
appreciate
we,
you
we had
guys.
a lot of fun doing this.
Yeah,
I
man.
thank you.
So
You
Appreciate
gotta
you
come
guys.
back, brother.
Nope.
remember, don't be like AJ. Please
Yes.
like, subscribe,
Please like,
and
great
share with
concept.
all. What's that?
Great concept. I love
Thank
it.
you,
I
thank you,
love
and
it.
share with all your friends. So we will see you next time on Underrated.